What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. So, bunch of basketball to talk about today. I'm going to push my NFL mock draft. I was considering maybe doing it tomorrow. My last NFL mock draft. We got a week and 2 days until the first round of the NFL draft. I'm going to do that next week. I made that decision, so tune in next week to catch that. Should be a lot of fun. But let's do my NBA playoff predictions right now. That is what we'll be talking about today for the most part. But before we get to that, I just want to announce that Mike Malone has hired an assistant coach. Kim English, who was recently let go by Providence. He wasn't a great head coach, but he's joining Mike Malone as an assistant on his staff at UNC. And the Pelicans have opened their head coach search. James Borrego is involved, so he will be given the opportunity to potentially earn the full-time job. So we'll see what happens there. But moving forward, let's get started with the NBA playoffs predictions. We're going to start in the Eastern Conference. Play-in starts tonight. We will have the first round playoff games tonight and tomorrow, and then Friday they finish off there. Sunday, the Saturday and Sunday this weekend is the first round of the NBA playoffs, the actual first round. In the Eastern Conference, I have Philadelphia beating Orlando and moving on in the play-in. Moving on in the play-in into the first round of the NBA playoffs. I'm a little torn between Philly and Orlando for that first playing game. Philly obviously is not going to have Joel Embiid. He's hurt. For Orlando, they just look checked out. They almost look they quit on Jamal Mosley. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later, Michelle. But it feels like they've kind of quit on him. That loss to Boston was rough. Boston wasn't really playing anybody. They had only like 8 guys playing, weren't playing a whole lot of anybody. And I mean, it was a close game, but definitely Orlando should have won, and they just looked kind of flat at times. I mean, it didn't cost them a whole lot. They just lose home court advantage in the playing game. They would drop to the 9-10 seed line. So it ended up not costing them a whole lot, but just it was pretty concerning. I mean, this is a team that you give up 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane. You should be a much better basketball team, and you can argue they're even worse than they were last year. So I think Philly wins this game and does move on to face the Boston Celtics in the first round. The 9-10 game, this one I'm really torn on. I do have Charlotte beating Miami. I know seems like a bit of a tough matchup for Miami. I mean, for Charlotte, because Miami can roll out the double big lineup with Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo. And Charlotte, I mean, they have a couple of decent bigs. Diabate has had a good year. I like Ryan Kalkbrenner. I like the ceiling of him. He's been pretty good this year, but they just don't have the experience, obviously, that Bam Adebayo and Miami does, so they could struggle with that. But I just think Charlotte, other than that, is a much better basketball team. They move the ball better. They shoot the ball better. Even defensively, I think they're about even. Miami is just, to me, the most mediocre team in basketball. They don't do anything really horrendous, but they don't do anything super well either. They don't shoot the ball super well. They don't have this crazy good ball movement. They're not that good defensively. Outside of the double big ones that they can put out, and also they're being coached by Alex Spoelstra, who's obviously a future Hall of Fame coach. There's just nothing that sticks out with this team. I think Charlotte's ball movement, and they're just a faster team. They shoot the ball better. I think they get past the younger Charlotte Hornets get past the experienced Miami Heat. Remember, Charlotte has been one of the best teams in basketball for the last like 3 months or so. They had like a 2 month span where they were like maybe the best team in the NBA. They started out very, very bad, but have been very good in the second half of the season. And they went from a team that's going to, be in like that top 7 draft pick area to, a no doubt playing team that got pretty close to cracking the top 6. So they move on into the top 8. Or not yet. They move on. They play Orlando in the second playing game, and they win that game. I really think whoever wins Charlotte in Miami is going to beat the loser of Philly in Orlando. Both teams just don't really scare me at all. Philadelphia is missing Joel Embiid, who is not a very good playoff performer. I've said many times I don't like the guy. I think he's a very overrated player. But he's still a big man that can at least give you 20 points in the playoffs in a said playoff game, possibly more than that. And that's tough to defend if you're a team like Charlotte or Miami, but not having him is going to really hurt them. Orlando just doesn't have the juice. I think Charlotte gets past Orlando. Uh, there'll be more battle tests after beating Miami. I don't think there's much of a discussion there. I think like the Charlotte and Miami game is probably going to be a very close game. I could see Charlotte beating Orlando by at least 15 points, to be honest. I wouldn't be very surprised. So Charlotte moves on. They get the 8 seed. They put Detroit in the first round. I think Detroit beats them. I'll say Charlotte takes them to 6 games. Uh, Detroit is a very quiet 1 seed. Obviously, Cade Cunningham missed the last few weeks with he had that collapsed lung, but he comes back for the last few games of the season. Gets his feet under him. Be interesting to see how he looks in the postseason after he missed all that time in the later part of the season. But Detroit is a very good team. They're outstanding defensively. They have a lot of really good size. They're great on the glass with Jalen Duren, with Isaiah Stewart. In fact, I'm actually going to change my prediction to Detroit in 5. They just match up really well with Charlotte. I know Charlotte in the regular season has held their own against Detroit. Haven't looked terrible by any means, but I mentioned how they could run into some trouble with Miami with those double big lines. Miami can roll it with Bam Adebayo and Khalil Ware. It just overmatches Diabate and Ryan Kalkbrenner. They're going to have a lot of trouble with Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Now, Stewart, Ware and Bam might both start. Stewart's not going to start for them, I don't think, but I would think Jimmy Bixby's going to run that one up a lot in that series, knowing that Charlotte just doesn't have the experience down low and doesn't quite have the size that they do. So I think Detroit overpowers Charlotte in that series. Though I think it'll be relatively fun to watch. I don't think we'll see too many blowouts in that series, but they'll just overpower Charlotte with their size. We got the Celtics playing the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm also going to take Boston in 5. Look, I like Tyrese Maxey-Locke. He's a great player. Paul George has played well down the stretch. Paul George has had some stretches in the playoffs where he's been very good. He's also had some stretches in the playoffs where he's been very bad. Max is a great player. We saw what he did in the first round 2 years ago against the Knicks. He was incredible in the first round series, lost to the Knicks. But and again, VJ Edgecombe is a good player. Rookie, had a very good rookie year. Being overshadowed a little bit by how good Con and Cooper Flag is, but he has been very good, especially in the first part of the year. But they just don't have what it takes. Boston, look, the East is wide open. I don't love Boston. Like their chance to get to the final. I think there's like a softness around them. How is Jason Tatum going to look? He's had some times where he has come up big in the postseason. I'd even argue he was carried a tiny bit by Jaylen Brown when they won the title 2 years ago, to be honest. And obviously, he's coming off the torn Achilles that he missed 10 months with. Came back even quicker than we thought from that. So I'm not sure how long they're going to go. But I think they'll be Philadelphia in 5 games. Philadelphia just doesn't have enough. Knicks, Hawks. I'll say Knicks in 6. As a fan of the Knicks, I'm a little worried about Atlanta. They are a good team. They've been really good in the back half of the year. They've given the Knicks some fits. The last time they met, which was about a week ago, Knicks beat them, but it was a really hard-fought victory, back and forth game. Knicks win by 6. Time before that, Atlanta beat them. Knicks didn't look very good. So I'm a little worried. Atlanta's played really well since they kind of retooled their roster during the season. I like a lot of the young players that they have over there. I think Jamin Johnson's going to be an All-NBA player in a couple of years. I think the Knicks are the better basketball team, and they will be able to get past Atlanta. Atlanta doesn't have a ton of size. Knicks have a bit of a size advantage with Karl-Anthony Towns, who, if you've watched the show, I'm not the biggest fan of, but he has played some good basketball in the back half of the season. He averaged, 20 and 11 this year. His passing was better this year. And Mr. Robinson, I thought, has played well this year. He has stayed mostly healthy, especially in the back half of the season. You have a guy like Diawara, who's young, but can kind of do it all. He played pretty well in limited minutes off the bench this year. Again, I think the Knicks, I mentioned with the Pistons against the Hornets, I think they use their size advantage, and having a guy like Jalen Brunson, who's a legit closer and a legit playoff riser, will help as well. So I'll say the Knicks. Hard-fought series, Atlanta gives them a run for their money, but Knicks win in six. And then Cavs and Raptors. I don't take Cleveland in five. The first round of the playoffs a lot of times is pretty boring, which is what I think it's going to be again, especially on the Eastern Conference side. Kudos to Toronto for taking a step forward this year. They play hard. Scotty Barnes was really good this year. I like Brandon Ingram a lot. He played really well this year. Other than that, there isn't a whole lot to like about this team, at least not yet. Like, Pearl's a fine big man, but he's not a real threat. And they have some other young guys. I like RJ Barrett. He's played some good basketball for them. Just coming over from the OG trade a couple years ago. I like Emmanuel Quickly. I like Ruby Dick. I like the core they have, but they're just not ready yet. Cavs are more battle tested. They're more experienced with Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. He's not a playoff riser by any means, but he's been here before. Cavs win this series in 5 games. To the conference semifinals, Pistons and Cavs. Give me the Detroit Pistons in six. I think this is an interesting matchup because the Cavs can counter the Pistons double big lineup of Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I think Detroit does trump the Cavs double big lineup. I don't want to, every single series here talk about the size and double bigs because remember, Knicks and Cavs played in the first round a couple of years ago. Everyone talked about how, the Cavs with, you know, Mobley now are going to be able to overpower Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson, and it didn't happen. Knicks won in 5 games. So it's not everything. I think the Cavs double big lineup matches up nicely with Detroit, but James Harden is going to lay an egg. He does this every year. He's been doing this for a decade now. Maybe not a decade, but pretty damn close to it, if not over a decade. We know it's going to happen. Even Donovan Mitchell has been inconsistent at times in the playoffs. Overall, he has good playoff numbers, and he's not a playoff faller, I don't think, by any means, but he's not, I even think Jalen Brunson's a better playoff performer than him. He's not, an all-time player in the playoffs either. And, Detroit is definitely deeper. They're faster. They're better defensively. And I think, again, I think the Cavs match up relatively well with Detroit so they can keep this close and make it a series. Maybe Harden will have 1 or 2 games where he plays well, and then the other 4 or 5 he plays really bad. I'll say Detroit wins and moves on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then we got Knicks and Celtics in the rematch of the conference semis last year. Knicks won in six. Of course, Tatum goes down in game four. Not the reason that they lost. They were fully healthy otherwise. So Celtics fans can't say that. But Knicks win in six last year. We rematch, and I do think the Knicks win. This may be a bit of a biased prediction, but I do think the New York Knicks win this series. The Celtics do lack a little bit of size. That's the one thing that they did lose. I think they're better in some areas than they were last year, even after, the kind of the roster turned a little bit in the offseason. Obviously, trading Drew Holiday away for Anthony Simons, who ended up flipping for Nikola Vucevic at the deadline. You basically dump Porzingis for nothing else, more of a salary dump. Not having Jason Tatum for a lot of the season. You're losing Al Horford in free agency. Overall, look, bringing Vucevic was a big piece for them. He's a good player. He's played with Knicks in the past a lot when he was in Orlando, when he was in Chicago. He's played well with the Knicks in his career. He's a good player. Even at his age, he's still a solid piece that can, he won't give you, like in his prime, he was giving you 26 and 12 or something like, and he would give you games like that. But he can still give you like 18 and 10 or so almost every night. But I'm just not sure how Jason Tatum's going to look. He's had issues in the playoffs in the past being fully healthy, coming off that torn Achilles. I can only imagine. The Knicks in Boston, they were backing up a lot this year. Knicks played Boston last week. They beat them. Looks pretty good. I think the Knicks will win this series. I think it's a very good series. Knicks win in 7 games. They get past the Boston Celtics. That sets up the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks. I hate as a Knicks fan I'm saying this, but I do think the Detroit Pistons will beat the Knicks in 6 games, and I have a feeling it'll be relatively demoralizing as a Knicks fan. They just, don't match up well with the Detroit Pistons because they're so good defensively. They're a little deeper than the Knicks. The Knicks are a team that they win, again, with their size. They have a lot better size and depth at, the big man position than they did last year. Detroit can match them in that department. they win. They're a team that's, when they hit their threes, they're unbeatable. Maybe top three team in basketball. When they're not, they're really vulnerable, and they've had trouble doing that against Detroit. And this could be a series like last year when they played Boston. You know, first couple games against Boston, they got their brains beat in. The last two games against Boston, they lost, but they were, closer contests. And then they finally overcame that hump and beat them in the playoffs. Similar thing to that, but also Detroit, without Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart, beat the Knicks by, I think, double digits earlier in the season. They just don't match up well with the Detroit Pistons. Again, Knicks a lot of times having Jalen Brunson gives them a big leg up because they have a legit star, a legit bucket, and a legit closer. Other teams don't have that. Detroit has that in Cade Cunningham. Uh, Knicks this year have better depth than they had last year. That's when they used to their advantage, having a deeper bench. Detroit absolutely can match that. So it's just not a great matchup for the New York Knicks. So I do think the Detroit Pistons will move on to the NBA Finals. I don't, I know I've seen in the past, I think I have some concerns about the Pistons, too many specialists. You know, they're like the fake tough guy act can kind of get them in trouble. Isaiah Stewart, has got suspended in the past. And now going into the playoffs, how's Kid Cunningham going to look? He's an outstanding player. The guy's an assassin out there, playoff riser. He's an absolute vicious closer. But I do believe in Cade Cunningham. I think he's that dude. And unfortunately for me as a fan, I think the Pistons do move on to the NBA Finals. On the Western Conference side, in the play-in, Phoenix and Portland. I'm going to take Phoenix. Kudos to Portland for even being in this after their coach got arrested middle of the season. But kudos to Tiago Splitter. I think Phoenix beats them. Devin Booker is an assassin out there. I think he goes for a 30 piece, possibly even a 40 piece in this game. I think they're a slightly better team than Portland. I think the Suns win. They advance to play the Spurs. Thunder, who will play them? The 9-10 matchup. Clippers and Golden State. Clippers win. Golden State. A lot of injuries. Steph is now healthy, but I don't know how healthy he truly is. As good as he is, doesn't have enough help. Clippers haven't liked how they played down the stretch, but look, Kawhi's a very experienced postseason performer. Overall, has been really good in the postseason in his career. Also, two Finals MVPs throughout his career, and they have some pieces I like. I know Darius Garland isn't much of a playoff riser. And a lot of these guys are either veteran role players who don't really scare you, or younger guys, guys like Ben McMorphin who aren't really there yet. But I think they beat the Warriors. The Warriors are just there's nothing there. It's Steph and friends. And then who plays the Thunder? It'll be Clippers and the Trailblazers. I'm gonna take the Trailblazers. I just think the Clippers they've reached their ceiling 3 years ago with this group with this coach. Uh, Might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Portland does beat them. They're not great defensively, but they're very good offensively. They've played some really good basketball down the stretch. You slip past the Clippers in the standings. I think Portland wins, and they play the Thunder in the first round. Now, I think the Thunder are going to sweep Portland in the first round. Uh, this team is the same team as last year. You have Nikola Tobic, who not going to play a whole lot of minutes. Obviously, he missed a lot of time this year. He had the health issue, but you have him. Plus, you have Jeremy McCain, who's a good scorer on your bench. Um, Little fatigue catch up to this team. We've seen it happen in the past. Teams that continue to go on this deep playoff runs. But look, Shai's, yeah, I think he's going to win MVP again. J-Dub, Chet, Doro, all these pieces, the size they have, the length they have, the depth they have, how good they are defensively, how well they make their threes. Uh, Good chance they could win it all, but they don't stand a chance against Portland. And then Spurs play the Phoenix Suns in the first round. I have Spurs in 5. Uh, I don't know who's going to be able to guard Wembanyama in the playoffs. And plus, you have a really good collection of guards with Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, and Stephon Castle. This is a good defensive team. Obviously, they have plenty of length. This is a really good team. I think Mitch Johnson's done a great job with this group. And I think Phoenix wins a game. Maybe Devin Booker goes off for like 35 one game or something, and they steal a game. But the Spurs will take care of business, and then they win in 5. Denver Nuggets and Minnesota Timberwolves. To me, this could be the most interesting series in the first round. Knicks Hawks is a case for that as well. I'm going to take the Denver Nuggets to win in 7 games. I know Minnesota has Anthony Edwards. Julius Randle was better in the opening rounds of the playoffs last year. Gobert down low. like Denver, they are experienced, but Nikola Jokic is playing out of his mind right now. Jamal Murray had the best year of his career. And I know they're not going to be very good defensively, but they have a couple of young guys I like, Vlatko Kankar, Julian Strawther, who have played better this year. And I think Minnesota may have reached their ceiling with this group, at least with this coach in Chris Finch. So and Randall hasn't had a great year. I don't think he rises to the occasion in the playoffs. And Anthony Edwards only so much that he can do. He's also been playing hurt for a while. He's played through a lot of injuries this year. I don't think he'll be himself this season. I mean, in this series, and Denver trumps them. Really good series, but I think Denver wins in 7 games. Lakers and Rockets. I had the Houston Rockets winning also in 7 games. So I don't think Luka Doncic plays the start of a series. I think he plays at some point in the series. They probably get him back into game 3 or 4. I don't see Austin Reeves playing to at least a game 5 in this series. But so this is a lot of it's going to depend on that. But I just think, having an ancient wash overrated LeBron James out there with a bunch of role players against a team that's playing really well. Kevin Durant hasn't had a lot of playoff success in recent years, but look, he can still score the basketball. And this is a good defensive team. Obviously, they have legit elite size with Jabari Smith and Alfred Sengun. I know Smith didn't take the jump we thought this year, and Sengun took a step back this year. But they had the size advantage over the Lakers by a long shot. I don't think the Lakers match up very well. Houston's playing really, really well going into the playoffs. And Lakers overall, their record is fantastic. The last 20 or so games going into the playoffs. But they pulled off a tiny bit without Luka and without Reeves. I think Houston will nick them in the series. Not having Luka probably the first couple of games in the series and Reeves for a bunch of the series will hurt them in the end. And LeBron loses in the first round, and I will laugh. I hope that happens because I will laugh. And then second round, Thunder against the Houston Rockets. I got the Thunder in 6 games. I like the way Houston is playing. This should save Emu Douglas I think he gets fired. I'll do that segment either later or tomorrow. I might just cover that after this NBA playoff review. That's what I'm thinking. But they're playing really well. Obviously, Kevin Durant can still score, but Thunder are deeper. They're younger. They can obviously match with Houston's double bigs with Chet and Hartenstein, and they get past the Rockets. Then we got the Spurs and Nuggets. I have the Spurs in 6 games. Jokic makes this a contest for sure. Jamal Murray and company are very good. They're on a 12-game win streak heading into the postseason. Wemby and Jokic will be a joy to watch. I know when we missed the last couple of games with the bruised ribs, I think that those a little bit precautionary. I think he'll be fine. I don't think it'll affect them too much in the playoffs, at least not in the earlier rounds. Maybe in the conference finals it affects them. But I'll take the Spurs in 6 games. There was a better built team. And then Thunder and Spurs in Western Conference Finals. I got the Spurs winning. I think the Spurs get past the Thunder and they win in 7 games. It should be a hell of a series. 2 great teams that are really young, really exciting to watch, really fun, long, good size, can shoot the ball. Both play a crap ton of defense. Both well coached, especially the Spurs. But I think Wembanyama's body holds up, and he puts on a big performance in the Spurs events to the finals. And then Spurs and Pistons in the finals. I got the Spurs in 6 games. Should be a fun series, but Pistons just won't quite be able to slow down Wembanyama enough. I can see Cade and that group kind of just running out of gas. I think the Spurs win in 6 games. So I was going to do an NBA head coach hot seat segment, but I'm going to save that. I decided I'm going to save that for tomorrow. That's all I got for you guys today. Till next time, so long. Have a great day.